Well, good morning. Welcome to Wednesday and little chat time as we continue talking through the other side. One more week here on the second phase of Three Pillars training and just trying to lay out the resources, the advantage of that service that it can be for people that you care about or people going through a setback or injury. If you remember last week, the key phrase was that there's two sides to every injury, right? The physical side that a lot of people get attention to right away through a lot of appointments with medical providers, but trying to make the case that there's a psychological, a mental side to every injury. And far too often that is not addressed the same way, which can prolong some of that recovery. Well, the main kind of point this week is that the second phase is really focused on balancing out the idea of isolation. So often people are getting that medical care, but it's from one appointment to another appointment weeks later. So they have some of that support, but there are these gaps between things. Even physical therapy, right, has a limited number of sessions that people try and space out. So there's these gaps of 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks between appointments with whatever medical provider is happening. And there's an opportunity for that psychological and mental care to happen in between so that there is not a disconnect or an isolation, but rather support and connectedness along the way. So writing on Monday about several aspects of that. And the first is the conversations that can happen for it. There's so many changes in an injury, right? Last week, the initial phase of loss and disconnect and feeling like, where am I? What's happening? And so people are trying to catch their breath. But in the Three Pillars template, there can be some ongoing conversations to help people understand and fill in those gaps. And when you have healthy reactions and healthy thoughts stepping in, you have less room for the negative thoughts, self-doubts, critical, negative things to step in and make injury recovery worse. Second, you have an opportunity just to start establishing a healthier routine when you're addressing the psychological side after an injury, because there's so much up in the air. As soon as someone can plant some basics through the course of their day or week, it starts to make them feel like there's a little bit of hope. There's some positive outlook that starts to set in. And when you have that happening between the gaps of the medical appointments, it's going to be much better in the long term for outcomes. Which leads to the last one. We're trying to get to that recovered ability, whether it's an athlete in competition or a person just trying to get back to their regular ability to function and do things on their own. There's just a way with that ongoing support and ongoing conversations and filling in those gaps that there is a way to experience a success over those mental barriers that exist. When people are alone and they're experiencing silence and some isolation, it's really easy to start thinking, maybe I won't get back to where I want to be. Whether that's an athletic level of success and performance, or simply, I don't have the same freedom and autonomy that I wanted to have before, and maybe this is going to linger longer than I want it to be. So along those lines, really encouraging people to think about your own situation where you felt isolated because of an injury and ask yourself, what could I have really used during that time to recover better, faster, or more effectively? Take time to think about that. And then the action point about that is to say, someone in your support network is probably going through an injury or setback. And whatever you realize that you lost and you could have used better, then please put it in action and do that for somebody else around you so that they don't have that gap and they have a chance to get through it better. We've talked in the past, like things about grief, right? When there's a grief event and someone loses something or someone, they have a lot of support initially, and then what happens over time? About 3 to 6 months later, everyone else feels like they forgot that date, they forgot what's going on, they're moving on. And so this is a way, this action step this week is a chance for you to step back into that world that someone's been living every day and you've inadvertently, not without care, just moved on from. So it's a chance to go back and help somebody in a particular way. So along those lines, was coming across an article from a Virginia health system that talked about the impact of loneliness and social isolation, because that's really the enemy in these injuries, is that people don't experience life by themselves. So this reminder about what the effects of isolation, here are some of those symptoms, right? People become fatigued. They feel detached from activities and other people, and they start withdrawing from friends and family. That's the risk of isolation. It can easily happen in injury because people are limited. They're not as mobile. they are defeated, a lot of other things like that that are happening. So here's their suggestion. All things that everybody can do in your own circles, but really shows the key aspect of what three pillars can step in and help with. So to avoid the fatigue, the detachment, and the withdrawing, number one, people need to feel cared for and valued. It's much easier to do that when you're right next to them in proximity. It's much easier to do that when you're attending to them throughout the course of a week. They need to have meaningful, regular conversations. Each one of you can do that, and it moves beyond that greeting of, hey, how are you doing? It's right, setting up a time to go visit them, setting up a time to come help, but have regular conversations. And that's obviously where mental health does a nice job, because it's regular, it's occurring, it is meaningful, it's centered upon what's needed to happen. And in an injury, there's a desire to have those meaningful conversations about the stuff that's not working, because there's so much pressure on recovery, and I have to do it right in order to get back. There's a lot of pressure in injury recovery, and so it's an opportunity to have regular, meaningful conversations to balance that out. They also need to experience public spaces, right? When you go over and visit someone and say, hey, I'll pick you up, let's go out and go do something, and I'll give you a hand, right? So have you been on crutches ever? You know it's annoying. You've been on crutches in winter, you know how like defeating that is to think you have to go out and about and do things. But if someone's by your side to be able to help you get back out into places and routines, they're going to feel much better. And then finally, the main point of resisting the isolation that can grow is just simply when people feel down, they need to have somebody to reach out to. Now, we know that's everyday life. People can feel down, but in injury recovery and injury prevention of worse things, it's really simple to go over that edge, because one day might be great, the next day might feel off, and no one knows why. And we want to work against that. So, a couple of questions for us this morning. What is one way that you try and remember to check in with people and find out about how they're doing? When you put it in this context, if someone has had a setback or an injury, in the short term, what's the best way you like to check in? And in the long term, right? How do you not forget about what they're going through? What helps you to stay connected with people to check in about them? Put it in your calendar. It's a great reminder, like a little, yeah, a little reminder that shows up, or an alarm that goes off. It's a great one. Days are busy. It's easy to forget about what's happening. Other things besides putting it in the calendar? Pictures. Yeah. Right. Side of the fridge, phone lock screen, something like that. They're good daily or regular reminders that come across your eyes so you can reach out to someone. Those are great ideas. Any others?
Like tying that to another habit, like, oh, whenever I have
Hmm.
Subway sandwich, I think about so and so.
Hmm.
Like, oh,
That's good.
like, hey, how are you doing?
That's right. Yeah, habit stacking or association, that's really good to think, when I'm in this place or do this thing or have this thing, I'm going to reach out to somebody. Those are all really good. And I assure you, if you're thinking of someone already who's going and trying to recover from an injury, all those ideas would help. And all those things might really step into the gap and help someone feel better, even as a caring person in their support networks, because those things are on the minds of the people who are hurting. Here's a kind of an interesting question. Think about your own experience when you've been injured or set aside, or you're struggling with some things. It's kind of this spectrum of wondering, where do you guys fall on this? Because this is a struggle that comes up in the counseling office a lot. Regarding some long-term difficulties, let's say long-term recovery, do you think you get tired about talking about it when people ask you how you're doing? Or do you start to believe that people are tired of listening about it? These are two barriers that keep people isolated. They just think no one wants to hear that I'm still having some pain. I'm still struggling with this issue. Or is it you just get tired of talking about how you're doing and answering the same question? Which one do you think is a bigger barrier for you if you're when you're going through an injury? Which one silences you more? Tired of talking about it, or you think people are tired of listening to it? You assume tired people are listening, right? So here's my follow-up question to everybody. When someone comes up to you and you know they're going through something fierce, is that your actual thought? Oh my gosh, here comes Steve. All he ever talks about is that injury he has. Can't stand it. Rarely does that good friend ever think that stuff, right? But that's where our mind goes. Even with a good friend, a good resource, you're starting to think, boy, they must be really tired about this. I shouldn't bring it up. And it's just such a like myth or lie that keeps people silent, trapped, and struggled, even in their closest support networks. So, I appreciate those answers, but give it some thought because I venture to say it's probably more of you get tired of talking about it, so you start to assume or project that other people are tired of listening about it. And maybe it's just a simple shift in that conversation, just to be honest about it. Like, this is really hard to keep talking about. It's been 6 months. I keep having these setbacks medically. I really could use some encouragement, right? Give some direction, and that also helps that friend to know what to do or say to assist you. So some final comments about this week and overall with three pillars. Um, First, I think that the passion people have for life or their sport or that individual autonomy or activity is definitely safe and kept deep inside. But the harsh part is that in prolonged struggle and recovery, when isolation is there, people aren't addressing the mental side, there is a risk that seems to threaten it. Like, that's the reason why Three Pillars training exists, because people have a passion for life. But if you've seen people go through an injury that they've not been supported with, they've had lots of setbacks medically or mentally, you see an effect on them where something has shifted, something has changed, and you realize, I have to help that person close that gap. That's what is important for this service, because passion is secure and it can handle a lot. But without the right support over a prolonged period of time, it can become threatened. Remember that talking about the mental side of physical setbacks is important to not ignore. I was grateful last Wednesday talking throughout all those 5 classes how people realized, like, I didn't really give that thought and attention. And I realize now I really missed that autonomy that I had. I missed that setback, or the fact that my recovery or my surgery or my injury was a little bit different, and I couldn't do exactly the same thing as before. That's the reality as people go through injuries or repeated injuries or age, that there is this accumulation of loss. And if you can talk about that accumulation of loss, you're going to do better in the long term. And then finally, just echoing this idea that just as much as we're passionate about around here, about Bill and I, about the mental and physical side of just every day, it's especially critical in injury. So people are good, they're trained, right? Go out and get some help, figure out what I can do to sort out this medical side. But it's kind of this plea these past couple of weeks is, don't forget about the mental side of these injuries as well. Because people can be healed on the outside and look like they're doing well, and they have that kind of mobility back, but on the inside it might be a different story. So I want to be able to ask about that as a mental health professional, but this week really talking about all the skills and abilities you all have to step into someone's life and ask about the mental side too. And if someone is still stuck, then it's like, hey, direct them back here to the gym, because we have another service that helps people recover in those circumstances, whatever age, whatever level of competition, whatever their goal is to get back to that mobility level. So it's appreciate listening these past couple of weeks, talking about this resource that's available. And as you go through life, we know there's going to be an injury you experience. So bottom line, I hope you remember some of these facts and encouragement to pay attention to your own sense of what's happening on the inside mentally too. All right, have a good workout, a good day, and I'll see you next week to kick off a new topic as well. Thanks.